One. Well, hello everyone. Good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the universe. I'm Keel Stewart, John King Saga is my channel. Welcome back to Six Elemental Interviews. And tonight, I want to stand up and cheer. I got one of my favorite people in the community, just a wonderful human being, amazing blogger and reviewer, great YouTuber. We're going to find out a bit more about him as well tonight because he is a very interesting and extremely well-rounded person, it would appear. So, so maybe you can discover things about this awesome gent along with me as I chat to him. None other than Jarrod, the fancy thinker. How are you doing today, sir?
Oh, PL, I'm great. Thank you so much for asking me on here. This is quite the pleasure. I've always actually wanted to talk to you. So I was had one chance earlier a month ago or so, and always wanted to talk to you again. Um, and of course, I'm talking to a wonderful uh, author. That is just one of my favorites right now. So can't beat that.
Well, I'm very honored, sir, and very humbled to have you. Thank you so much for the kind words about my book, and you've been such a great supporter. It really means a lot to me when someone of your caliber, says great things about my work. So, but today is all about you. So, I want to delve into a few aspects. So, if you don't mind exploring your background a bit, first of all, just if it's okay with saying, I hope it is. And although it's not my country, thank you for your service. You are a veteran of the Airforce. Is that correct?
That is correct. Yeah, I served right out of high school.
Wow.
And that was way back in '87. So did my 4 years, did my time, and moved on.
Okay, so that's quite the job to have come out of high school. If I'm asked a bit, what were you flying planes? Were you servicing them? What were you doing? Were you a scientist? What were you doing in the Air Force?
I was doing the all-important job of water treatment. So
Wow.
I was in civil engineering, and I did water treatment, wastewater treatment, and the closest I ever got to a plane was I had to make the demineralized water that goes into the huge, like C5 huge planes, and that they ran their batteries on. So that's what I did. That's the closest I got. So
that is awesome.
Not very glamorous.
No, but you first of all, civil engineer, so clearly you're a very smart guy. Second of all, helping to keep the actual place running, so that's pretty important. Yeah, maybe not the glamorous, all the glory, but very critical to the operation. So,
but that was where I found my love of reading, was in the Air Force, because I was really bored, actually. So I found books. I found lots of books. Yeah. So that was where it is.
And back then, what were you reading? So you're just at high school. You're in the Air Force. What kind of books are you reading back then?
I started with D&D books related. I was a big D&D player, and I started with Dragonlance, and moved on to all the rest of them that came out. And I started, Dragonlance was already out, but at that point there weren't many. And then, so I was getting them as they came out, back then. And that was everything to me. I really loved those books when they were coming out. And so that's the initial, my initial thrust into fantasy reading. Yeah.
Wow. Well, you have a love of reading. Clearly, you're an intelligent guy. You're in the Air Force, and then you decide to go to university, and you decide to major in English.
That's correct.
So, what did your love of reading like? Sorry. So I should actually ask: did your love of reading was that also coupled with a desire to write because you took liberal arts in English and history? Was that the thing?
Yeah, I didn't I went and because I went to school after the Air Force, of course, and because it was paid for by the state of Massachusetts because they have a program, and so that was fortunate for me. And I went to night school, and it was definitely my love of reading that prompted me to pursue academically English and history as my focus, and so that was, and that just, of course, that just snowballed. It led to more reading, led to an expansion of my reading habits, and more stuff.
Wow, that's incredible. I want to quickly pop up in the chat. We have the amazing Chris Mohan, fabulous book tour himself. Check out Chris's channel. He is wonderful. Great member of the community. Hey, Chris, buddy, thanks for coming out to support Jarrod.
He's the best. He's the best.
He's absolutely amazing. So absolutely amazing. We love Chris. So thanks for coming by, buddy. Hope you're doing well. So you major in English and history. So I'm guessing you're a history buff as well.
Yes, I am.
So is there a particular period that you're most fascinated with in terms of historical context, or
that whole bookshelf back there? That's all history. Okay.
Wow.
but medieval history, of course. Given my taste towards fantasy and Dungeons and Dragons, that would slot right into that, and of course, that just led to other types of history, because you can't, when you're just going for a general degree, you can't specialize in medieval history. So I took whatever history courses were available. So yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of history, we have an incredible fantasy author, Mr. Von Raycroft. This gentleman here is a marvelous human being. I had the privilege of interviewing him as well at Six Elementals. His series, Southern Nation, is it's Chef's Kiss.
Yep.
I'm envious, Jarrod, because you got an arc of the last book and you read it. So now you finished. Now that the series is completed, I've only read the second book. So I watched your review of the book. Apparently, you had great things to say about it. So thanks, Vaughn, for coming by. Really appreciate it. And
you're the best.
We got to sing your praises, Vaughn. Not only you're awesome, gentleman, you are fabulous writer. I predict Vaughn's series is going to make it into my top 10 indie series of all time when I'm done. It is that good. And so maybe you can speak a bit about Vaughn's series. What you like about it?
Just finished Destiny's Doom. What I love about it is his sense of history. He brings that. It's the setting is very Roman Goth setting, and the it really gets that feel of what it was like to have when you had the Goths invading Rome during those times, during the those periods. They invaded Rome a bunch of times, but it really has that feel. And if you like history, but you like just that little touch of fantasy thrown in there, Vaughn's setting is a secondary world. It's not our world, but it really feels grounded in our history, and it really feels so genuine. And he can tell he really likes his history, and he's done his homework, and he gave us a great experience in that genre, which it's like you want to say it's historical fiction, but it's not. It's definitely fantasy, but it just feels so genuine in that historical vein, and I loved it. I really loved it. I was so happy to get that arc from Vaughn in the mail, because he surprised me with it, and I just I was like, wow, this is the best Christmas present that wasn't on Christmas ever.
That is awesome. Yeah, Vaughn is a great guy. Great series. I plan to finish, of course, the third book And just amazing stuff. So, and he, gracious as he is, he says, "Thank you both, gents. Cheers to you, Vaughn." And he says, glad his love of history shines through. It definitely does. Quickly, also in the audience, we have another amazing booktuber and community member.
My best buddy. Here she is.
How are you, Marsh? Thanks for reading by the Rainy Mountain. Thanks so much for coming by and supporting, especially Jarrod, and saying hi. It's always awesome to see you. So thank you for coming by. Check out her channel. Awesome stuff. So Vaughn, so you go to university, night classes. You finish up. That we talked about your area of studies. You also were, I'm assuming, because you did night school and you did your degree, a post military service. You're inducted to the National Honor Society for Continuing Education students. Wow! Congratulations!
Oh.
Congratulations! That's pretty impressive. How did that happen?
Well, easier to do when you take 10 years to get your degree. But no, you know why that happened? The real reason why that happened is because the second class I ever took was a class called the short story. And the professor in that class, I wrote my first paper for a story, and the professor in that class, on that paper, I got it was like a C. It was full of red marks. And he kept me after class. He didn't give me a choice. He kept me after class that night, and 3 or 4 other people. And I literally learned more about writing and sentence structure and everything else, about language and just how to format stuff to make it presentable. I learned more from him in 40 minutes after class than I did all throughout high school.
Wow.
It was an amazing wake up moment for me. Dawn shines on Marblehead, and I just wow, that was amazing. And I took his advice to heart and I ran with it, and I did not get below an A the rest of my career in college because of that. Because when you're in English and history as your major, most of your grade is writing. Most of it is, 90% of it is. And so that matters, that having that ability to put together a solid paper really matters when it comes to that stuff. And this guy, it was Dr. Coughlin. I'm sure he's long passed by now, but he really taught me so much in that short a time, and in the rest of the class too. But it was amazing, and I also learned really how short stories work. He was an amazing teacher, and he really drilled it into me. And I never forgot that class. All the other classes I took, I may remember something here and there, but that class, never forgot it. And that was only my second one. So,
wow,
that was with 10 years of schooling.
Well, still, that's very impressive. Very impressive to maintain such a high GPA. Very impressive to get that honor. So, and great to hear that you had a teacher that inspired you. That was a big part of doing that. And Vaughn just quickly says, "Yep, love hearing about that one teacher." Yeah, well, I think we all have it, who's changed lives. So clearly that teacher made an impact on you, Jarrod. And, you parlayed that. And this is the one thing about you, and I cannot believe this. I'm actually deeply ashamed that I wasn't aware of that in preparation for this interview, doing my research, that you are also an author, and you talked about short fiction there, and you have self-published several stories. You've co-authored them with a couple of other authors. You've published some, what sounds like some great Pulp Fiction type stuff. Tell us about Secret Agent X.
Well, it's funny, PL, as I have some stuff here.
Ooh.
Before I went into the short story publishing field there, I actually made movies, and
What?
yeah, um, very low budget independent films. So
Wow.
I got a couple of them here,
Oh shoot.
and
You kidding me?
yeah, so
Wow.
yeah.
That is awesome.
While I was going to school, my brother decided to sell his motorcycle and buy a really nice movie camera, and he said, "You want to write it?" I'm like, "Okay." So I wrote these. I wrote the screenplays for these films. They are available on YouTube as well, somewhere,
What? Oh,
somewhere,
I gotta watch those. I gotta
somewhere.
watch
But
those.
just just so people know, they're very low budget. They're terrible movies, all told. But they had the good moments. So, but that was a you know, it was one of these things that my brother and I and some of our friends, we liked this thing called serious fun,
Yeah.
and ton of work. Like we had no idea what we were getting into, like making movies. It is a lot of work. Talk about weekend warriors. Like
Wow.
we were working like 24 hours in a weekend every weekend. And oh, let's go Chippy Poe. All right.
Oh, Jim, the awesome Jim Paul, another great community member, fab supporter. Thanks for coming by, my friend. Said he just had to run outside and missed a few minutes for an errand, but yeah, he's stoked for this. We're
Oh
stoked
yeah.
to have you, Chibble. Thanks for coming out. Sorry,
So
Jared, go ahead.
no, that was me. But um so we stupidly started off with a feature length film, right? Who starts with a feature length film? And it's and then we went to short films and did some of those. We did about, I think we did 4 or 5 short films, and
Oh,
submitted them to
wow.
festivals, and we got into Newport, Rhode Island Festival, Newport Film Festival, for this one, for the Virtue, the Way of the Modern Samurai,
Wow.
and so that was a pretty good. That was probably our best film, and it was quite the adventure. It was such a learning experience to do that, because I directed this one as well, the Virtue one, and I directed some of the short films after that. And what a crash course in learning how to do that stuff, and really really toughened me up for other stuff, in the future that I wanted to do. Um, and so I had been, along with those scripts, I had been slowly writing short stories as well, and some short stories I wrote. Um, I was like, wow, I got a whole bunch here. Maybe I should, throw them into publish them or something like that. And I had written to, like, magazines and stuff. Back then we used to have, paper magazines.
Yeah. I remember. I remember,
Yeah.
brother. I
Oh yeah.
remember.
So I had written to magazines and I submitted some and what have you. Got a bunch of rejection letters, and as every writer's gotten, right? And and I was like, okay. I get really despondent when it comes to that kind of stuff. So I'm not really I don't have a thick skin when it comes to rejection letters and stuff like that. And finally I was just like, maybe I'll just put out my own thing. And so I did that. I put out my own
Wow.
self-published book here.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
yeah, and had me on the back, and it's absolutely horrible. The the type setting is all different in the stories because I didn't know how to do that, and I had to do it myself. This was way, way back in the old days of self-publishing, when it
Oh
was just
yeah.
getting started, and like even the publishers, I don't think knew what they were doing. Stock covers and what have you, and so. But it was cool because I had physical copies,
That's amazing.
and I worked for a comic book store on the weekends. And so he would sometimes have conventions, and he'd give me a table, and I would sell them at the conventions. And it was at one of the conventions that I ran into Ron Fortier.
Ah,
Ron Fortier is an editor for Cornerstone Books, for specifically Airship 27 Production, a small independent publishing house that specializes in pulp fiction. And he was also the writer on the very first Terminator comic,
oh,
drawn by Alex Ross. He was the writer on that. Um,
wow.
and that was Alex Ross's first comic, and Alex Ross, of course, went on to bigger and greater things, but that was Ron Fortier, and Ron Fortier also wrote the Green Hornet comic for Now Comics way back when. And but then he started this pulp fiction publishing thing, and so that's when I met him at one of the conventions, and he saw that I had a book of short stories, and he said, "Oh, maybe you want to write Secret Agent X for us?" And I was like, "Okay,"
Wow.
not knowing what I was getting into. Okay.
All right, we go down. We got to pull on that thread. We got to get back to that Secret Agent X. So,
Oh yeah.
we're going to quickly put up a few other comments. So, Chimbo says, "Awesome! My only fan fiction online is published." LOL. But hey, it all counts. However you publish in this new era of self-publishing, publishing on Wattpad, except like this, it all. And I know I know Chibipo might get upset for saying this, but I think he's a great writer. I had a sneak peek at some of this stuff.
Oh, okay.
So I think he's a great writer. But anyways,
awesome.
Well, I'll get to interview him soon on Six Elementals, and hopefully we'll chat about that. So, and we have another fabulous author.
Yeah.
JCM Byrne.
Yes.
What's up, Joe?
Definitely want to get more of the Joe stuff this year too.
Oh yeah, I need to. There's going to be a JCM Byrne shelf in my bookshelf. There's no doubt about that. That's a given. I really got to get to the rest of his stuff. And I read Wistful Sunday. It was fabulous. So yeah, and we have to get JCM on the channel so we can chat about it. So, but that's happening soon. So
yes. Space Bears.
That is just, Space. What can you say? Space Bears. That's needs no more introduction. So you get asked to write this pulp fiction action hero, so what's it about? You co-authored it with a couple other authors. So how did this all go?
Yeah. Well, actually, it's not. The book it's actually 4 different stories in the book. Oh. So my story is my own. Yeah. And
okay.
So there are 4 short stories in the volume, and they're a little bit longer than short, like 15,000 pages or so words, and so the stories are my own, the ones that I authored, and so yeah, he asked me to do that, and he gave me some like a guidebook. This is Secret Agent X. This is what he's like. Here's his supporting characters that he's normally has. Not that you can't make your own, but here's what he normally associates with. And he gave me the whole Bible basically of Secret Agent X, and I was like, oh great, and I did my research and sat down and had an idea for a story, and the first one was volume 3, I think. Yeah, this one here. So that's volume 3, and I went to town. I wanted Secret Agent X to get out of the United States. So in this particular story, he travels to Panama and then Cambodia, and I had a lot of I worked with a lot of Cambodian folks at my work, and so I was asking them questions to get some insight into the country and stuff, and even though I had to base it, in the 1930s, Because Secret Agent X is basically a secret agent for the United States government in the 1920s and 30s. Normally, he fights Nazis. That's basically the whole premise of the Pulp Fiction for him at the time. And so, I incorporated that as best I could, and basically my story had a secret Japanese camp as base in Cambodia because they were planning something sinister. So Secret Agent X had to go in there and disrupt that. So yeah, that was the basic of that story.
This is awesome stuff. And so, how many volumes? How many stories did you write?
Just two.
Just two.
The second one was the one you got up there on the screen.
Up on the screen.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, I did that, and I didn't make any money. These things don't really sell that much, but it was cool. It was just cool to have something out there published, other than something that I did, and it was neat. And my second one, the volume 4 there, I actually started writing this. I started the first chapter in this one while I wasn't even done with the first one because something's popped in my head. I was like, oh, I got to get that down, and but then I stopped after the first chapter and went back to the story and submitted it and all that stuff, and then it took me like a good year actually to finally finish the second story, and I was a little burnt out, to be honest with you. Because I came to discover that writing's not my favorite thing to do, not like you, because you have to have a passion,
yes,
to keep going. You gotta have the passion. You gotta love doing it. Joe knows you have to love writing in order to keep going and keep doing it and have that kind of, that kind of focus on it, and I had other things to focus on. So
I know, I totally understand, legit. But if I can ask, do you think you'll write again? You think you'll, whether it's a short story, a comic book, who knows? Like, do you think you'll write again?
I don't know. I did a little bit. Page Chewing had a writing contest, writing battleground going on, and I joined it halfway through or something like that, and I wrote like 6 little short stories during that, and I was once again reaffirmed that this isn't for me. but I tell people that I write because I have to, not because I want to, and that's like, and I feel like that's why I write reviews the way I do, because I feel like I have to write them that way, because I script most of my reviews that I do on my channel, and because I feel like I need to write them first, and that way I get it out of me, and that's just the way I do it. So I know some people like to do it off the cuff and by the seat of their pants or what have you.
Just do it. But your reviews are excellent, so I mean, clearly it's paying off. So that's awesome. It is extremely cool, Joe. Yeah, it's really cool. Oh. It is really cool. It's just something just fascinating about you. That when I read that, I was like, wow, and I gotta pick those up. I gotta pick up those volumes that you've written, Secret Agent X. So if it's okay, let's talk a bit before we get into the booktube stuff. Let's talk a bit, if you don't mind, about page chewing, because this is actually going to be an opportunity for me to, find out more about what you do with page chewing. Because the thing about page chewing, the name, a lot of people perhaps don't even quite understand the scope of what page chewing is. For example, my awesome partner Taylor and I from Made Between the Pages, we're under the page chewing umbrella, and we do the YouTube interview stuff. So, but page chewing is much more than that, and most people know that. However, they may not know exactly what the brand is. So you are a member of Page Chewing Crew. If you look up Page Chewing, you're part of the team, the official team. including Holly Tinsley and Tim Hardy and Steve, who is the overlord, the grand poobah of all things page tuning, the creator, the one to which we owe the entire umbrella. Well, first of all, can you quickly explain what is page chewing and what do you do as part of the creative team for page chewing?
Oh, I didn't know I was on that list.
Yeah, too late now.
First of all, Steve is the best. He's awesome. But I don't know. I just do whatever Vasha tells me to do. Really, she she invited me on there, and she's been great. And so I just Steve let me spout some of my reviews and post them on the page chewing, the blog and the website there. And so that's pretty much what I do there. And every once in a while I'll schedule a talk, that I can host on my channel through there, so that if anybody wants to join, they can. Which, by the way, you're invited to any of my talks if you ever want to join. But it really is all Vasha's fault. So we can put the full blame on her. And but yeah, and it's just a huge collaborative effort that's awesome. And I am so glad I found it. I'm so glad she invited me on there. And like I said, Steve's awesome. We do podcasts. Steve and I do a Oscar Projects podcast. We're doing with Chris too. And we're we talk about comics. Steve has our long running weekly Pulls comics podcast. We do, he invited me on there, and I was just like, oh, this is great. I love comics. Like I said, I used to work at a comic book store, so I absolutely love comics. And yeah, it's just I'm not in any way involved with any of the administrative part of it at all. I'm just the old guy hanging out, and I love it.
Well, you're doing awesome, and I would describe, when people ask what page tuning is, I describe it almost like a mini Reddit or Discord, but it's so much more than that. I mean, just all the stuff that's going on. There's like D&D, and there's comic reviews and book reviews and movie reviews and podcasts, and I don't even know. I don't know. I mean, I'm part of, I do the YouTube portion, but I don't even know all the things that the dice chewing, like all the things that page chewing's up to half the time. So,
yeah, I hesitate to call it something similar to Reddit or Discord or anything like that, because it's so much more than that, and it's such a community, and it really is. It's a special place. It really is.
It is.
I'm on a couple of Discord servers that I follow, and it's not the same. I like them, but there's nothing like page chewing out there.
Yeah. Page chewing is definitely like a family. It feels like family. Yeah. I'm not saying that you can't find that on Discord or Reddit or whatever, but right, sure. But I page chewing is definitely, you feel like you're coming home. The people there are just so phenomenal. Yeah, I totally agree. It is definitely that family atmosphere. So, and I'm honored to be part of it in my small part that I do with YouTube stuff. So, but speaking of YouTube, so somewhere in the midst of all the other things you're doing, you decide to create a YouTube channel. How did that happen?
Well, you know what it was? Like, I've always had to have something in my life creative, so I was going to school. That was creative. I was writing papers, I was doing whatever. And while I was going to school, I also started making movies, and that went on for a long time. We did that for about 10 years. And then I started writing, or started at least putting some of my writing into book form and what have you. and I was working at the comic book store. I started doing reviews for the comic book store as well, and posting those. And once that kind of died down, there was like a little podcast for the comic book store as well that the owner ran, and so I was a guest on there quite often. Um, and so that's where I kind of got the little bug for podcasting, but it was in the back of my mind, for a long time. And then and then to fill that creative void, I started pursuing to play professional Magic the Gathering, and I was really into that game, and I was like, and I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it can take up a lot of your time. So I started pursuing that, and I almost made it. I almost made pro, but alas, I lost to the guy who won. So off he went, and I didn't quite get there. But once that kind of died down after a few years, COVID hit. I'm sorry, Joe just made me laugh. He's right. He's right. It's hard to stop. I still do it online every once in a while, but
Joe's so damn funny.
When COVID hit, you couldn't go to a store and play anymore. So the and then that's when I started like looking around for mallards and stuff to research. I was just like looking for material online about mallards, just information, because you know how mallards is. There's a lot going on there, and there's a lot of stuff that you you may not understand here and there. And so I was just looking around and I found some YouTube videos, because I didn't like go on YouTube and say, show me mallards and stuff. I just Googled mallards and stuff, and YouTube stuff came up. And that's when I started watching, Phillips Chase's and AP Canavan's discussions. And it was fascinating. I was just like, wow, look at this. And I started finding more people and following them. And I was commenting on videos, and they were commenting back at me, which was amazing. And I was just like, wow, look at that. And I just did that for 4 or 6 months, and I was just like, oh wow, I used to do reviews. I can do reviews. And I see a bunch of other people doing reviews, and I'm like, yeah, I can do reviews. I know how to do this stuff. And so I did my first review on an Alan Moore book, Illuminations. It was a book of short stories, apropos enough, right? Yeah. Because that was my specialty, was short stories. And so I did a review on that. It's a horrible video. I probably should take it down, but as everybody's first one always is, right? And
mine still are.
Yeah, it's still up there. You can still go see it, but and so I did that, and eventually I did more, and you start doing the updates, and you start talking about that stuff, and it ended up being fun, and that was my next creative outlet. And so here I am now, 2.5 years later. And
2.5 years, congratulations. That is awesome.
Yeah. And I'm having a blast.
It looks like it. You bring a joy and effervescence to reviewing, especially, and your channel. I love watching it. I love watching you, and I think it's just so refreshing to see. Like, I can see the excitement on your face when you review certain books, you read certain books, and you're just, I love that. So, you bring very, very intelligent, insightful commentary about books. And I must say, I'm going to get into this in a bit about, there's a lot of reviewers out there that review all kinds of books. But I know you do too, but you've certainly shown a spotlight. And it's a great indie books, which I think deserve some love. So thank you for that as an indie author myself. And thank you for everything you've done to support the John Kingdom saga. But I'm going to get into the books and reviewing aspect. And I just want to quickly put up the Varsha said about Patreon. Yep. Come for the read along, stay for the community. Yep, page 2 will definitely suck you in with the community stuff. And Jimmo says down with the tyrant version of Iron Grip over page 2 and wait on Churchman DG.
Yes.
So, but yeah, so you start this booktube channel, and you know how that is. That opens you up a whole other world.
Yeah.
Because now you're reading stuff not just to read it, but you're also reviewing it. And I think what happens, especially when you become a blogger, whether that's written reviews, YouTube, your TBR really expands, and you go into areas that you might not have necessarily gone to before. And I think, especially with the change in the industry, people, booktubers, bloggers in the fantasy science fiction vein, a lot of them are really slowly, if they were before, they're starting to pick up indie books. And you, of course, you were an indie author way back before it was Vogue, certainly, and which is so exciting. I have to get my hands on your book. So, tell me about what you've seen in this. You've been on BookTube for 2.5 years. Especially you're dealing with predominantly the fantasy science fiction area and our corner of that space, and with indie and trad. What do you see is going on with this industry? I think even in 2.5 years, there's been some light year type changes and evolutions. But you were doing it. You were doing it back in the day, brother. Like you're an OG. Like you.
This wasn't technically indie publishing. It was small press.
Yes.
So
yes.
But so that I tried. This was the indie publishing, which was, like I said, horrible back then. But so when I saw the first exposure to indie publishing I had was because Philip Chase had an interview with Von Roycroft on his channel. And he was talking about The Severing Son as his first book. And I was like, wow, that sounds really cool. And this guy is really cool. He's a nice guy. And so The Severing Son, and that was even before I started my channel, that interview, I believe. And I was just like, that sounds like a really cool concept. And the author's like a really cool guy. And he's saying a lot of stuff that I agree with. And that kind of resonates with me, and so on a whim, I ordered his book. I ordered The Severing Son, and that ended up being like the 3rd or 4th or 5th review I did on my channel, because that's like I ordered it. By the time I read it, I had started my channel and was off and running, and so I was really amazed that that was my first exposure to independent publishing in the modern age now, decades later, right? And then so I was amazed at the beauty of the cover. I was amazed at how polished the writing felt, at everything. The whole package was just, this is up to par to anything you can buy at Barnes and Noble or whatever. And I was just, I felt like, I was like, wow, there's something about this new era here of indie publishing that just lifts it into a new sphere that gives it a bit more gravitas and a bit more sustainability, it seems like, because and it made me interested in more. And and I didn't have a plan then. I was just reading whatever, because Vasha hadn't invited me yet to page viewing, so I was just reading whatever. And so I just I didn't have a plan as far as what I was going to read next, and I didn't really know much else about the indie sphere, but then I saw an interview with you somewhere. I don't know who it was with, but I saw it, and I was like, oh wow, Drowned Kingdom Saga. That sounds pretty cool too, and I'll get to that. And it took a while for that stuff to percolate, and get into your brain. But you were pretty good at keeping people's interests going, and you kept popping up in places and stuff. And so eventually, I was like, all right, I'll get it. And the same thing with some other stuff. So I was like, wow, you know what I'm going to try to do? I'm going to try to read like one indie book a month and try to squeeze that in there and support this growing thing that's going on that is really fantastic.
Well, thanks so much for giving my try. I mean, can't go wrong with Sunday Nation by Von Rohrkopf. Amazing. Can't go wrong with Joe stuff. Rohan, awesome character. Yeah, love Joe stuff. So now that you've discovered some of these indies, right? And you're still reading, of course, your published books. Do you think your mix now is slowly becoming rather than just reading any book a month? Do you think you can foresee a time when it could be? I'm not saying it has to be. I'm just saying it could be like 60-40, 50-50, even predominantly reading more indies and what is it about indie books now? They've clearly now captured your imagination. And I think it's something that, of course, there's indie books coming out every single day, like hundreds of thousands, right? Space. So where do you foresee your reading going in terms of indie stuff?
I don't think I'll be doing more than one a month at this point because basically there's so much good stuff out there. There's so much good stuff. When you're working on stuff like this, it is, and when you have, you still have active Erickson. He's still writing stuff. Janny's still writing stuff. So there's people, I'm reading Mark Lawrence's stuff right now, and Esselmon's still writing stuff. And, so my favorite traditional publishers that are still active are still writing stuff. So I want to keep up with that stuff as well, so it's not going to be that simple to squeeze in a, indie publishing to make it like a 50-50 or whatever type of majority. I'm reading sci-fi masterworks. Like as much as I've read in my life, there's still a lot of stuff I haven't read that was published a long time ago.
Oh yeah, me too, brother. Yeah,
it never ends, and so I don't foresee indie taking over my reading or even equaling the traditional published stuff yet, but I'm still going to keep at it. I still want to support that aspect of publishing because I think it's important to do that, and I think it's especially now with the quality we're seeing from you and from Philip Chase and and Joe and Vaughn and all those people who are winning the what do you call it, Spiff Bowl?
So self-published fantasy blog off.
I'm sure those are all great books too, and I would like to try to check those out sometime. And there's a few, and there's other authors on Page Chewing too that I want to check their stuff out. So I know you like Tim Hardy's stuff. I want to check his
love his stuff. Love Holly Tinsley's stuff.
Yeah, amazing. I want to check her stuff out. So I want to check all the stuff out. So there's a lot out there.
So that's too little time to read all the things on TBR. Chris, thanks for commenting. Indie publishing premium space for originality inside fantasy and sci-fi. Yeah, because what, and I totally understand why the traditional market does what it does and operates how it operates and essentially chases trends and etc. But indie, you can find you want a taste for a particular type of fantasy or sci-fi, you can find it up there. You can find those stories that don't get published in the traditional market. I think that's really refreshing, and I think it's fascinating. And the wonderful Vaughn says, "Yep, I'll say so many books all the time, which makes me so grateful whenever England and your stuff so deserves to get read. Juan. So it's no surprise that your series continues to ascend in popularity, as does Joe's. Those are two big indie fanciers out there right now that people are buzzing about. So I'm sure that will only continue. So let's talk, if you don't mind, about, you mentioned some authors. Probably most of these are traditionally published, but give me your top 5 favorite authors, if you don't mind, and why. If you can come up with that list. Top 5 and why.
No, I made that list way back in the early my channel, and that's probably changed a little bit since then. But why? Okay, that'll be a little more difficult. But number 1 is Erickson. He is my favorite author right now. Has been for a while. And like when I started my channel, I was already doing a reread of Malazan, Book of the Fallen, and Esselman stuff. He was number 1. Why? I'll get to that. in a moment. Let me finish the list. Number 2 is Stephen Donaldson. And he's the one. This is why. Like when I read Stephen Donaldson way back in 1988 or 89 or whatever it was, and I read Lord Foul's Bane, and I was kind of blown away, but I was also taken aback.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, wait a minute, this was hard for me to read at the time. I was like 18 years old, 19 years old, or whatever it was. And I was just like, this is different. This isn't the same as my D&D books. And, the other books I was reading. It's dark in some places, but it was just different. There was something here that I didn't quite understand at the time, but there was something there, and then I read the rest of the trilogy, and I read the second trilogy of Second Chronicles, Thomas Covenant, and that blew me away. That's my favorite trilogy right there, the Second Chronicles, but I still didn't quite get the significance of that. I just knew there was something special there, and the more I thought about it, the more I was like, wow, that was really great.
Yeah.
And all the other stuff I read after I finished that series, that 6-book series, paled in some manner. Still not understanding why, because I hadn't even gone to school yet, like I said, and then Donaldson came out with his Gap series science fiction cycle, and that just blew me away. And I was like, all right, this guy's it. He's my, nothing can top this ever, right? And then along comes Erickson many years later, and I read. I picked up Gardens of Moon off of the shelf in the bookstore because it had a Donaldson quote on it.
Yeah.
Right. And so I was like, okay, if he likes it, then maybe I'll like it, right? And I read that, and I was like, wow, this is really cool. Really good, very literary, just outstanding. And then I read Dead House Gates, and I was like, all right, there's something major going on here. There is something that is unprecedented compared to what I've read before. And I read Game of Thrones, when that came out way back in the 90s. And I really enjoyed Song of Ice and Fire. Really enjoyed Song of Ice and Fire, but it didn't stick with me the way Donaldson and Erickson did. I don't know why that is, but I love it. Don't get me wrong, but it just didn't stick with me the way those did. And as I read Malazan, by the time I was finished, by the time the Crippled God had me on the floor in tears in a
Yeah.
fetal ball.
Yeah.
Uh, I was like, yeah, this guy just topped him. He really did, and so he's my favorite. um, Number 3 is your friend of mine, Janie Wirtz. I love Janie's writing. Absolutely love it. I I'm
Chipo's
only
protesting.
I
He's
know Chibi
protesting.
protested. Yeah, uh, Chibi can yeah. um, and I knew that was coming if Chibi Po was going to be in the chat, but uh,
She's my
yeah,
favorite too. So what can I
yeah,
say?
yeah,
She's my
and
favorite author too.
deservedly so. She's incredible, incredible, and of course she has Donaldson quotes on the back too. But
Yes.
but the yeah, Janie's incredible. I haven't finished her series yet, so
Oh, that's the other thing too. Yep, you haven't finished
you
it
know
yet. So there you go.
I still have 2.5 books to go.
There's something.
And but I did read Master of White Storm. I liked that a lot. It was interesting. Very fun read. A really cool read. And I plan to get to some of her other older stuff as well as soon as I'm done. Wars of Light and Shadow. So yeah, she moved up to number 3. She wasn't on my list when I first started BookTube
Oh.
because I hadn't read her yet. So that makes sense, right? Um, so then number 4, which used to be number 3, Mr. Tolkien.
Yes.
I love Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
And so that's there's no explanation needed there, right? And then number 5 for me, I would say is Robert Howard. I love Conan. I love Conan. I read all the comics. Every Conan comic that gets put out, I read it because of what he created. And so he doesn't have a huge library of stuff.
No, he doesn't.
I mean, considering when he died, it's a pretty big library, but it's limited. But what he did do, I think, was just outstanding. I think he set the standard for sword and sorcery.
Sword and sorcery fancy, yeah.
And everything that comes after is either derivative of what he did or in opposition to what he did. So and so I just he's my guy as far as that goes. I put him at number 5. Yeah. So.
Wow, that's an amazing list. Pretty influential group of authors right there.
Yeah, and there's a reason why they're influential. They're that good, and I would put Esselmont as a close 6 or 7 as well, because he's really fantastic, really fantastic. So.
I have to read all. I have not. I've read Malaz's Book of the Fallen, Erickson stuff. I have not read Esselmont stuff yet. I will. I plan to read everything in that universe. So and the other books by Erickson in that universe. So but again, the TBR struggle. But Malazan was it's pretty well number 3 in my top favorite series right now. But I tell you, it Toll the Hounds ruined me. I was bawling my eyes out. Bawling. just ruined. Right? And the great authors, I'd say, I'm not sure how you feel about this, Jarrod, but what I'm really seeing is, you can see with Janie Wirtz, you can see with Erickson, you can see it with, and I really enjoy Donaldson's stuff. I read it when I was very young in the 80s when it came out, and they know how to stick the landing. They know how to end.
Oh man,
Janie's endings will also just destroy you. Will just leave you like, what the hell?
Oh yeah, no,
You
the
know,
ending of Storm Fortress was just—that's my
oh,
favorite book in the series right now.
yeah,
I love that. I was just like, wow, this was awesome.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Fabulous authors. All that's a great list, Jared. You got some great
yeah,
ones up there. So,
and
uh,
in all fairness, Gaiman was up there too.
yeah,
He's probably number 6 or 7. And I know there's been a lot of flack with him lately. And he's a bad name to throw around, but he was a great author.
yeah.
He is a great author. So uh,
It's hard in this age, in this environment where we know so much more about the personal lives
yeah,
and what's going on with these authors, and then as I think most of us good people, we can't help but be repulsed by some of it, and in some ways reject in rejection of the behavior if it's abhorrent, kind of rejection of the work, but yet you still read it and loved it, and it's hard to
yeah,
it's sometimes it's hard to separate yourself from that, and everybody has to make a choice about that, right? About how
yeah,
much you're going to and to what degree you're going to judge the author by his or her personal views and their actions,
yeah,
whether it's rolling going further back to people like the H.P. Lovecrafts of the world, or you name your author, right?
yeah, yeah.
So it's but that again, that's a personal choice to everybody. But yeah, I think that's a great list that you have, Jared, and clearly I know you're going to keep reading, and who knows, your list may change over time
You never
as you
know.
pick
Yeah.
up. You know, I think Erickson's probably going to be cemented, in the top three for a while, foreseeable future. Sounds like it.
It took 20 years to topple Donaldson. So
Yeah, there you go. I
uh,
want to know,
uh,
Jenny's no
Jenny,
slouch when you finish
Jenny.
that series.
Within 2 years, she's in my top 5. So that tells you something right there. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. Jenny
and
knows how to stick the landing. She knows how to stick the landing.
th-
So
and you're right about that. Sticking the landing, like even Donaldson's latest series, The Great Gods War.
I haven't read it.
That
Haven't read that.
and that book, that The Killing God, really. I'm just like, I can't believe not more people are talking about it.
Yeah.
It floored me. It floored me, and I'm just like, wow, there's
Wow.
nobody talking about this book. It was my book of the year for 2023, I think. Yeah,
Oh
and
wow.
I'm just like, wow, nobody's talking about this series. It's amazing.
I definitely got to get back to reading Dawson. I want to reread the first two trilogies for Thomas Cunningham, which I read. I was very young, but I must say, when you look at someone like Dawson, I mean, he's again, you weren't even writing for a while, and even though it's funny how some great writers, it doesn't seem that the momentum of their fame is carried over to the degree that it should be. Like someone like Janie, right? Janie is only now experiencing a renaissance. She's one of the greatest fantasy writers of all time, and a lot of people had never read her main series,
Hmm.
right? So but it's funny how Donaldson, who to me is a fantastic author, and I think iconic, the way Janie is, the way Erickson is, et cetera. Like, yeah, he doesn't nowadays. I don't think he gets talked about as much in our space the way this is to me
Yeah.
a revered author, but
When he is talked about, he's talked about in the sense of his what he's most famous for. Uh,
yes,
but he has a lot of other great stuff
yeah, yeah,
beyond Covenant. It's a lot of good stuff he's written, and so check it out. Like, I know some people don't like Covenant as a character, and that's fine. That's understandable, actually. But Donaldson has a lot of other great stuff that's not Covenant, and
yeah.
it's worth picking up every bit
Yeah.
of it.
And I mean, after all, I know for me personally, I mean, me, you've read my books. I love me a flawed, messed up,
Yes,
messy
you do.
character. So, Covenant was always up my alley that way. despite some horrific things that he did.
Yeah, that jerk Hawthorne.
Yeah, but I always say, like when I think about, excuse me, my favorite authors. Yes, I remember the action scenes, but it's the characters that resonate, that stay with me, right? And when I think about Malazan, it's the characters that stay with me. With Donaldson, it's the characters. With Words, it's the characters. It's the characters. So, I feel like if you can write a series or a standalone or a short or a comic, whatever, where you have a memorable character for good or bad reasons, but it's all good, right?
Yeah.
I think if people forget about this particular battle scene in my books, but I think most people will remember Othran if they read the series. He leaves an impression, hopefully. So I think that's every author's goal, to write those characters that stay with you after you've closed the pages.
Sure, absolutely.
And another wonderful community member, the awesome Cena Poem. Hey, what's up, Cena? How are you doing? Said, did I hear Donaldson? Yes, your ears were burning with Donaldson. Yeah. Jared's a big Donaldson fan. I am as well. I really need to read the rest of his stuff. And she says as well that yes, Gap Cycle is
Gap
so
Cycle. Chibi mentioned Mirror of Our Dreams and A Man Rise Through. Fantastic duology. Yeah, you're right, Chibi. Great stuff.
I gotta read. It's so little time. Like, my TBR is like, you just go like.
PL, I'm doing a short fiction side hustle right now, and we're reading Donaldson's Reeve the Just and Other Tales, one short story a month. So if you want to catch up with us and join on.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I might have to see what I can do. I can't make any promises, but I might have to see what I can do. Oh wow, beautiful cover, eh? Wow.
Short stories. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm backed up with arcs. Oh my gosh. But you know what? I really do want to get back to it and all this stuff. So, man, I can keep talking for hours, man. But I love talking to you. I'm gonna respect your time. So, as we're winding down, you've given us some great authors that you love. Your top 5. You talked about some indie stuff. Any recs that you haven't mentioned in that you want, just pick one that you really want to get out there that people should be reading more of, you think, based on your experience. It doesn't necessarily have to be underrated in general, but just underrated for you, like
good question. Well, I do recommend people do read other stuff, read outside just fantasy, even though I'm the fantasy thinker, fantasy is my thing, but I've read a bunch of other stuff that makes me appreciate fantasy for what it is. And so if anyone is interested in history at all, read Barbara Tuchman, especially A Distant Mirror, The Calamitous 14th Century. It is a fantastic history book. It reads like an epic tale. It's about the 14th century. It's about the 100 Years' War and the Black Plague, and it's from the viewpoint of a single noble family in France. And so you actually have a character to follow through the book. And so Enguerrand de Coucy is the character, and is the noble in France who you kind of follow through this history. And it's a fantastic book. And it's like I said, a history book. Barbara Tuchman. I would highly recommend. It's my favorite history book of all time, and I would highly recommend that. I would highly recommend *Sapiens* by Yuval Noah Harari. That gives a great big picture history of the world. I would highly recommend that. I love Harari's writing. I read all his stuff. So please, do yourself a favor and check out Sapiens if you haven't. A lot of people have. It's a very popular book, but uh, and yeah, read comics. Read Alan Moore. He has some great stuff. He has great literature as well as comic writings. He has a new series out right now. Check that out. Chris and I did a discussion on that. And what else can I recommend? Yeah, I don't know. There's a bunch of stuff. Read some of the classics. Like read some 19th century literature, because that's when literature really grew up, I think, and started really forming into what we now read today. And so there's a lot of great 19th century literature that you can really sink your teeth into. Read more short stories. Short stories are really important. Um, they really they really know how to bottle down the essence of storytelling into a singular unit that can get a theme across very quickly, and when they're done well, can really hammer home a good um, aesthetic reaction in the reader. And so, when short stories are done right, they are done very well. They can be very rewarding for the reader. So I would check out good collections of good short stories, and and it's also a good way to break up some of these large fat tomes that fantasy readers tend to read.
That's a marvelous suggestion. Marvelous
Yeah.
suggestion. Quickly, I see it says Sleepwalkers by Coaster,
Oh,
and she mentions
God, Dennis. Yeah.
Garth Ennis. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So Simone's got some great recs. If you want to know about audiobooks, Sita is your person. She knows audiobooks.
Oh.
So yeah, Sita's your person for audiobooks. So uh, Jarrod, you've been so wonderful, so gracious with your time. I'm so happy that and honored that you came on Six Elementals. Um, as we sign off, can you please let everyone know where do we find you in the space, your YouTube channel, where do people follow you on socials, page chewing, etc. How do we get to know more and keep up with the man who's a fantasy thinker?
Yeah. Well, the Fantasy Thinker YouTube channel. Keep up with me there. I try to mention all this stuff on my monthly updates. I'm not always successful, but I try. And and I'm on the page doing forums. If you anybody who wants a good community of folks join page doing, sign up and join us on there. And I'm pretty active on there, commenting here and there. And I can't recommend that site highly enough. I'm on a podcast called Speculative Speculations with Vasher and Chris, who are in the chat there, and Steve as well, and a couple other guys occasionally. And I'm also on a podcast called The Oscar Project, where we're looking at we're watching every Oscar-winning movie from 1960 on up, and we're so we're going through those, and so you can find me on that. And I'm also on weekly polls with Steve from Page Chewing. We talk about comics every week, and I'm also on a various other random podcasts as well. So check out the podcast section of Page Chewing, and you'll find me on a few of those here and there. So it's a lot of fun.
Fantastic. And I have to say quickly though, Jarrod, as well. Dude, one day I hope you do audiobooks. You have the voice. The voice is friggin' tailor made. Come on, Cena, don't you think Jarrod's got that audiobook voice? He's got it, man. I would love to hear an audiobook narrated by Jarrod. You definitely got the voice, my friend. So.
It's funny you bring that up because I did do a couple of narrations for Livia Elliott.
Yes.
And
yes.
little short things. So you'll have to check out her website to find them. I don't know where they are, but
Okay.
um,
I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna do that. Love her stuff. I really enjoy Olivia. She's a wonderful
yeah,
tuber and blogger as well, and author.
and a good
Brilliant
writer.
author.
Yeah,
Yeah, brilliant author. So wow. Okay. All right. I gotta check it out. See, you're full of these hidden. You're full of these hidden gems,
I,
eh?
I I forget some of the stuff I do sometimes.
And by the way, you got an endorsement from Cena, who's an audiobook expert. She says yes, you do
Oh,
have
okay.
the voice.
Oh
So there
my.
you go. There
Oh,
you go. So
thank
we're gonna have to hear more from you soon, my friend.
thank you very much.
Quickly, some shameless self promo for me. PL Stewart, Challenge the John King Saga. Find my YouTube, Six Elementals interviews here, where I get to chat to fabulous people such as Jarrod. Thank you so much, everybody who came by in the chat. Chris Mohan, Warren Ray Croft, Chibapo, Varsha, Joe Byrne, Chris Mohan, Cena Palm. If I missed anybody, I apologize. I think I got everybody. You are what makes this type of long form content. Hail long form content, may it live forever. Despite what the algorithm says, you are what make this
No
long
kidding.
form content amazing. So thank you, and thank you to everyone who's going to watch it on the replay. For the blogging stuff, it's reviews on Goodreads, but also I'm an assistant editor for Before We Go Blog. Shout out to Beth Tabler and the wonderful, my fearless leader there, and the wonderful Before We Go Blog crew. They are amazing. Of course, for YouTube as well, page chewing under the page chewing umbrella, as Jarrod talked about, with my awesome partner, another great booktuber. Check out her channel, Taylor, for Maybe Between the Pages. We do an interview series there as well. For the books, peelstore.com, 5 books out now. Most recently, A Pack of Wolves, published just a couple weeks ago now. And I am furiously working on the 6th book of the 7-book John King saga, entitled A Black Dragon on Red.
Ooh.
And that is expected in the spring of 2026. My man Jarrod will be one of the first people, I think, to get an arc of that. So hopefully he enjoys it. I think it's something very, very different from maybe what he's read before for me. So we'll see if he likes the difference.
Looking forward to it.
And Varsh says, thanks for the chat, and quickly Chipper Post says bye. Finally, shameless self-promotion, brilliant anthology, Shapers of World 5. Some amazing authors in this anthology. Recently came out in March. I have a short story in there. It's in the John King saga universe, some centuries before the events of the main series. I think you might find this one interesting.
Cool. Yeah.
So did I send you an arc? I think I sent you an arc, didn't I? Jarrod?
Nope.
I didn't send you an arc in this. We got to rectify that, my friend. Consider arc come to your ribbon. I would love to hear what you think about my short story in this
Awesome.
anthology. So I will be sending you an arc of that.
All right.
So quickly, thanks again, everyone, for coming by to see the amazing Jarrod, fancy thinker. What a wonderful member of the community, and an awesome fellow. Hope you enjoyed getting to know a bit more about him as much as I did. And so Jarrod and I are signing off.